we got time for this. Before we go into number 2, I got one more. 2 Kings 4. A certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, your servant, my husband, is dead. And you know that your servant feared the Lord. Now here's the creditors. Now in those days, they just didn't come to take your stuff. They come after your kids. I don't have no man. I don't have no money. I don't have no house and stuff. Well, you got a couple kids there, don't you? We'll take those. Huh? The creditor is coming to take my 2 sons to be his slaves. All right. You cast down those thoughts now. Yeah, come take my kids. Man. Don't take my house, but you can have that one right there. So I hear those thoughts. Just cast those thoughts down. So Elisha said to her, what shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house? And she said, your maidservant, I don't have nothing, but so I got this right here, this little jar of oil. And then he said, okay, borrow vessels from everywhere. See, this is a seed time harvest principle. He's trying to get her to get some seed. As long as the earth remains, there's seed time, harvest. I got this little jar here. He said, go borrow vessels from everywhere. Go to your neighbors. Empty vessels. Don't gather just a few. In other words, get a bunch of them, all right? And when you have come in, shut the door behind you, you and your sons, and pour it. What? That jar of oil that you have in your house. Pour it into those vessels. And then set aside the full ones. What? Wait. See, now we're reading this. Some of you didn't know the story. Let me help you. She didn't know the story. How many of you know she could have talked herself out of this miracle? Tripping. Key number 2, not going to take long. Let me spend a minute here. Same thing I've been talking about. That little jar of oil didn't look big enough to solve her problem. She got problems. The creditor's coming after her 2 sons now and going to make them slaves. This is the debt collector. Let's bring it into the 21st century. This is the guy calling your house, saying, where's my payment? You 2 payments, you 3 payments, you 90 days past due. Y'all know what I'm talking about? I know them fellas. They're mean. When they interview people like that, there's a certain kind of person that fills that position, right? They don't play. They're not the nicest people you want to find. Huh? And it can seem overwhelming. Debt collectors. Like Steve Squires says, the IRS. And they come after and start calling him. They want their money. They say, you entered into the arrangement, and hey, you may be guilty. But you know what? I ain't got it. Right? I mean, if I had it, I'll give it to you. So what you tripping about? Then you get all tense and mad. I've been there. What was you going to do? See, now they can't come after your kids, thank God. Huh? If that was the case, man, a lot of us wouldn't have kids. This is listen, say real. This is a real situation that happened in the Bible. This is not a fairy tale. This is something that happened, and I tell you, if we can learn some things from this. There's a reason it's in the Bible. It's for us today. The Bible says the things in the Old Testament, we're not living in the Old Covenant, but the things in the Old Testament were written for our admonition and for our learning. This woman had some real issues. They're coming after her stuff, and the prophet says, take that jar. First of all, go get a bunch of vessels. For what? She's going to pour, and I'm going to pour. How is this little jar of oil? And I'm going to go get not a few, but a whole bunch. I'm going to go to my neighbors, and I'm going to get all these vessels. I'm going to bring them in here and I'm going to pour this little oil. Listen, I got something I can pour this in. See? Don't try to figure it out. This is the man of God talking to you. Do what he said. You don't have anything to lose. And I want to honor this lady right now because, man, I want to see her in heaven. Because that's an incredible act of faith. We're releasing her faith to go out there and say, hey, I need to borrow a vessel. Say, for what? Well, I got this little jar at my house. Okay, you can have it. And they leave, and you can imagine them neighbors, they get on their cell phone. They're like, hey, Hazel, you know what, man, my neighbor came over. I got this crazy neighbor. She came over my house, borrowing a vessel. She got a little bit of jar of oil in her house, and she want to borrow a vessel so she can pour that little bottle of oil. It don't make no sense. And you're not going to make sense to a lot of people when you start obeying God and do what he tells you to do. But you do what he tells you to do, you're going to get the results. He said, when you get them, what? Come on. And shut the door behind you. She did exactly what the man of God said. So she went from him and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her. And she poured it out. Now it came to pass when the vessels were what? How did the vessels become full? How did it happen? Did she do it? No, she didn't do it. All she had to do was what the prophet said to do. And what the prophet said to do, it didn't look big enough. In none of those examples that I showed you, none of those things that God said to do looked big enough to solve the problem. But in all those situations, the common denominator was that they all could do the instruction that God told them to do.